Welcome to Necessi-Tea. I'm Lindsay Jackson.
And I'm Marguerite Pierce. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we have another guest. Yay! Her name is Lenina Mortimer, and she's an author, relationship coach, and Columbia grad. Welcome, Lenina.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I guess tell us a little bit about what you have your degrees in, because I find the combination very interesting.
Oh, okay. So I love school. Loved it so much. I did undergrad twice.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. I have a bachelor's in biology with a focus on neuroscience and a degree in journalism and a master's degree in clinical psychology with a focus on mind, body, spirit practices. So I forgot all the stuff that I'd studied just then. Sorry.
No, it's okay. So I'm intrigued about your interest in all of those topics, right? Because on one side, half of those are science-based, right? Mm-hmm. And rely on tangible data and facts and things like that. But then, spirituality is not as tangible and kind of focuses on faith and the unseen. So how do you reconcile the two of those?
Ooh, okay. I would offer that spirituality is tangible, but not in the way that it's seen.
Okay.
I believe that spirituality really is the study of energy, and the study of energy is really the study of physics. Mm. And so I would postulate that it is tangible, it can be measured. Yeah. And you're probably asking, how so?
Yeah, that was my next question.
Let's see. So part of my practice with the Breakup Funeral is creating a space for healing and releasing. And after I would say that the practice of the ceremony, people actually come back and say, well, I've had a marked change in this XYZ area in their lives. Okay. And so one could argue that, well, how do you know it was because of the ceremony?
Right.
And I would offer, well, how do you know it wasn't?
Right.
So with that said, I don't know if I really answered your question.
No, you did.
But I will say that in my studies of spirituality, I've noticed and observed that it's this, once you've acknowledged that all things is energy, and the first law of thermodynamics discusses energy and how it can neither be created or destroyed, just change.
Transferred, right.
Yeah. And really, when you acknowledge this about yourself, but that the realest part of yourself is energy, then the whole spirituality part of it just becomes like, oh, okay, cool. I'll go with it. Right?
Because it is just also about a belief, right? Because you said, hey, how do you know it happened because of the ceremony? But also, how do you know it didn't? Yeah. So I can pick and choose that this transformation that I have experienced has happened through spirit, triggered by the experience that I had in the breakup ceremony, right? But I can choose to believe that,
It's what you choose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess you guys don't have no such thing as small talk. You guys just went right in.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yes.
We don't hold back, Lenina.
Yeah, we
go
dive right in.
So, you make reference to the Breakup Funeral. So that is, so tell our listeners about the Breakup Funeral.
Okay. So I wrote a book about overcoming breakups called I Ain't Thinking About You. And it's about the spiritual healing ceremony that I created called the Breakup Funeral. And I created it after I had gotten ghosted and I had all these feelings of unworthiness, rejection, abandonment that I really needed to process. And so I created this ceremony in order to process those feelings. And hence, the Breakup Funeral was born.
Yes. And in your book, you detail, this process. And I remember from my own reading, I was thinking about what were my breakups like? you know? And I had a different experience with breakups. You know, one of my experiences is in college was one of the roughest breakups. And it was actually like my fault in the breakup, and they broke up with me. But I just wanted to have that experience back so bad. And I just remember obsessing and allowing that to take over my mind. I was in school. I'm not thinking about my classes.
Right.
I mean, I remember asking my professor to give me another chance at one of the assignments because I allowed it to consume me so much that I didn't focus on my priorities, which was this paper that I had to do. So each piece of the story I reflect on, you know, what my breakup was like and how this process would have helped me overcome that breakup. Yeah. Because it still has a little residual, you know. It's still 20 years later.
It's not too late for a breakup funeral.
You know, oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, it's, you know, as I was reading your book, I was trying to put myself back into a space where I had just gotten over a breakup or in dealing with it, because it has been a long time. Yeah, I'm knocking on wood, y'all. And I just found it really cathartic and therapeutic to read about this, and like, oh man, yeah, I could have probably gotten through some heartbreak that much faster and stronger had I had this at my disposal. So I think you did like a fantastic job of breaking this down. So like at this point, like we're just getting started, people, but find a copy, download the book, because I think you can apply it to a lot of things and not just breakups. So you want to talk a little bit about how universal this process can be?
Yes, I'm so glad you said that, because when I first went to my publisher, I was like, I want to write a book about how to let go of anyone, anything, and any place that no longer serves you. And they're like, that book won't sell.
Right.
Has to be specific.
Right.
Go ahead and narrow that down.
Just a teeny bit.
Yeah. And so I find that the application of the breakup funeral is really the releasing process of anything that doesn't serve you, including jobs and careers. Because I know I had to do a breakup funeral for my former career, past career.
Okay.
I'm thinking about breaking up with beliefs, right? Beliefs that don't serve me anymore, rules that don't serve me anymore, and just have a whole breakup with all of that.
Right.
Yes. Actually, I have a funny story about that.
Yeah.
It's not haha funny. It's like,
we like all forms of funny.
Yeah, go for it.
So I work in Hawaii. So I live in Brooklyn, work in Hawaii. So my commute is, interesting.
Yeah.
Exactly. And after my first week there, I had this a shamanic initiation in Hawaii. I was taking a shower, and those glass sliding doors.
Yeah.
I pulled it like ever so gently, and it shattered into a million pieces.
While you're in the shower?
Yes.
Butt naked?
Yes. Dripping wet.
Lord?
Yes. And I had but like a little scratch on me, little nicks.
Wow.
Right? And so, that speaks to me being spiritually protected. I'm exactly where I need to be. But also, it speaks to, after I got out of the shower, I was sitting down with my CEO, and I was telling her, I'm like, listen, Spirit, I get it. I get, I have to have these initiations and these lessons or whatever, what have you. But I don't want them to be so dramatic anymore, right?
I needed to smack me in the face to kind of like wake me up, right?
I don't need that anymore. I go through a breakup, and it's like a breakup. It's not just like whatever.
Right.
And I was like, listen, I need to renegotiate these contracts that I don't know, or beliefs or agreements that I made whenever,
right?
But they're no longer serving me. And so we did a breakup funeral then.
Wow.
To renegotiate those beliefs and old contracts.
That's interesting. That is a funny story.
Yeah.
How that whole kind of like came together in that, right?
Yeah. Right. And I think one thing that's really great about the process. Like, not only are you breaking up with the things, the people, the beliefs that don't serve you, but you also have to make space for something to replace it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if you want to like tell us a little bit about that, because it's not just, it's like there's two kind of, well, there's 8 steps, but there's 2 halves of it. It's letting go of what's not serving you, but also leaving yourself open.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So we hear a lot of advice about, you just need to let things go. Just let it go. That's fine. And what are you going to replace it with? So the universe enjoys a vacuum, and so it will be filled with something. So let's be intentional about what will replace it. And so the ceremony is really about, in some parts and form, about being intentional about what you're calling in and what's leaving. Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up.
And one has to really prepare themselves, I think, even before participating in the breakup funeral. One has to be ready for that breakup. You know how sometimes we can just be kind of addicted to whatever pain or sorrow, this grief that we're experiencing because of the breakup, but allowing myself to have at least that one piece of openness that allows me to be ready for the breakup.
Yeah, typically, if you found me, that means you're ready, because it's something so obscure that if you're knocking on my door to have a breakup funeral, that means that you're ready.
Yeah.
And so just saying, I would like this we've already had the breakup funeral.
Yeah, I think of, we like to bring our girlfriends to stuff. So sometimes it's like, you know what, girl, you need to go to this breakup funeral. I'm going to go because I'm aware that I need that, but you need to go. And they may not, so they need that one piece of openness to kind of get ready for this breakup funeral that I'm going to force them to go through because they need to get with it, right?
Yeah, I acknowledge that it could be a little bit awkward when people are just like, well, I just showed up because she told me to come here,
right.
But I don't understand what's going on. And then I tell them, well, it's just about letting go of things that no longer serve you. And I remember when I had my first breakup funeral, I recorded a video. I was wearing a fur coat. I was drinking pink champagne. And
Love that.
I recorded it and said, hey, friends, I have some stuff to let go of. I'm doing this funeral. If you have some stuff to let go of, come on down. And so it really doesn't need to be about like, listen, girl, you need this. Because you don't need anything. You don't need to show up. What the heck do I know? I'm just a woman burning shit in my backyard. Like honestly. But I say this to say it's important to have a space where you can go and release and let go.
Yeah.
And bring your friends, even if they don't know what the heck is going on.
Because when we even talk about the universe, you just never know. Everything happens for a reason. So even if I'm coming there as this friend who I don't really know the details of this, I don't know what to expect to get out of it, it's guaranteed that I'll get something out of it, right? That I definitely will have something that I need to let go of. Not even just breaking up in as far as like a relationship, but as you talked about, there's just many areas where you can apply this breakup ceremony.
Yeah, I can think about half a dozen things from this morning that I can let go of.
Yeah, right?
Just by living life.
Right. Just your daily routine and experiences.
I can let go of the woman who sat too close to me on the train. Yeah. I was just like, move over, lady.
Right, like there's all these seats.
All these seats.
Right. Ridership is down like 80%, and you're still going to just sit right next to me. Okay.
I can let that go.
Yeah. No, I got it. So have there been instances of like someone attempting to participate in a breakup funeral or do one prematurely? Because I think you talk a lot about acceptance before jumping into this process. So what does that look like?
Prematurely jumping into a breakup funeral. Well,
I just want to rush through this process. Like, oh, somebody told me about this, and I'm
right. I just want to free myself of whatever I'm carrying. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the thing about rushing. The process is an open space for whomever shows up for it. And if you're rushing in order to avoid feeling, then the breakup funeral is just going to bring that up. So unless you just want to shock your system into like really grieving and mourning the breakup, then okay, I think there might be a space for them here as well, and for extra support as well. Because while this is a therapeutic space, it isn't therapy.
Right.
And I encourage folks to get support wherever they need. And there really is no such thing as rushing. And what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that you really can't fake the healing.
Right.
Because really you're just faking yourself.
Right.
So there is no point.
Right. You can't try to trick the spirit, right? You can't trick the energy.
You can't trick yourself.
Right.
And so really there is no point to it. But welcome, come in. This might be the beginning. Yeah.
Is there a piece of the process that you love the most out of the whole ceremony?
Oh my God, yes.
Which one? Because I have one that's my favorite.
Oh my God. Okay.
So what's yours?
My favorite part is the letter.
Mine.
You guys are hilarious.
Tell us why. Tell us why is that part. First, tell us about the letter, that step, and then why is that your favorite?
Cool. So there is a role play letter in the Breakup Funeral in which you write a letter in the voice of the person who did you harm, dirty, whatever, and have them say to you what you most need to hear. Listen. So here's the thing: the brain doesn't know the difference,
right?
And so you are actually giving yourself the medicine that you most need. Once you get over the fact that you're actually writing this letter,
right?
And you just
and the judgments that you have about it, like, oh, this is so stupid. This is not even them. They would never say this. It's like, who cares? You need to hear this right now.
Exactly.
So say what you need to say to yourself
and make it good.
Yes.
Make it juicy.
Right. Make it juicy.
Yes.
Of course.
Love all up on yourself in this letter. That's why I love that.
And have them say things that you really deserve to hear. Not just most want to hear, but you deserve to hear that you're beautiful and you're loved and you were fabulous and none of this was your fault.
Because that's a lot of what many of us need to hear, right? Is that whatever it is that we experienced is not our fault, right? That discomfort, right, is not our fault. This bad experience is not my fault.
Right. Like taking ownership for somebody else's shortcomings, because that's what we do when we're doing that, like that judgment. It's just like, oh, well, I deserve it because ...
Yeah,
all that emotional labor.
I love it. So, and then tell us a little bit about the role play piece, because you talk about the letter. What's the other aspect?
The other aspect. What do you mean, the other aspect?
Oh, tell the listeners about the role play. So you have the letter. I write this letter in the, in the view of the person that hurt me or wrongdoing. But what is the process now with the role play?
So the process with the role play, as we're writing the letter. So in the Breakup Funeral, we read the letter aloud. And it is also burned at the end of the process. And so the idea is that you receive the closure you most need to hear from the person, and then you release it and you let it go.
Yeah. Right. Nice. Marguerite and I were talking about, the breakup and about power.
Right.
It's a thought that came up for me. It's about power and control. Because here in this breakup, you broke up with me, and now I have discomfort, because of this. I'm experiencing pain because of this breakup, but I'm also giving you my power. And so sometimes the closure can be about reestablishing the power and control over my mind, over my thoughts, over my heart, because you've kind of taken that, right? Quote unquote, I'm doing some air quotes, right? You've taken that, from me, but that's not necessarily true, but that's what we can experience, right? About that power and control. I think of was the movie Two Could Play That Game with Vivica Fox, and she talks about you gotta get that power back, and so you gotta transfer the energy so that he can now be mad at you, frustrated, right? Go over there, piss him off, and now you feel good,
right?
Because you've transferred that energy, right? But it's getting that control back sometimes. Like, you're not gonna carry this. I'm gonna take my control back and be in control of my heart and my thoughts, because right now you have it because of this breakup.
That's the interesting thing about the power dynamic is it's all internal.
Right.
And so there's this perception that they've
Lost
taken it or that you've given it away. And I think the process is really about remembering that you have the power and that you're the one in charge.
Yeah.
It's your choice. You get to choose your healing.
And that takes a lot of work, though, right? To remember that you have the power, because some women grow up with all power being in the relationship with the person that they're with, or being taught that that power, or the illusion, right, of that power is in that. So I'm not even aware of this power that I have, because I've been kind of conditioned to give it all into this other person, into this whole space. And then they can come and go and say whatever and have this type of control over how I even see myself.
You know what's really interesting? It's one of those storylines, the archetypes that I find that sometimes we blindly play into. One of which is the I guess the Virgin Mary. Like you give, you nurture, and you give.
Oh yeah,
right. And well, I just had another thought, but I'll come back to it, because I was just thinking about the martyr, right? The martyr complex, because that was one of my stories that I didn't even realize that I had.
Part of your story,
yeah. And so I was just playing into the story without even recognizing it. And actually, whose story was it? Was it mine, or I've just been conditioned to sacrifice and to give? And not question it, because that's just the way you are. You sacrifice for community. You sacrifice for your relationship. You sacrifice
family,
for your
right.
Yes.
No matter what.
No matter what. And I had this awareness that I was playing into this martyr role, and I didn't even realize it. But guess what? Someone is benefiting from it. It's just not me.
It's just not you.
And so in relationships, when you're feeling disempowered, somebody is benefiting from it.
Right.
The question is, you got to ask, who's benefiting from you being disempowered?
Right.
The thing that I liked about like the closure chapter, you talk about it. It was really wonderful to me, because I've always been of the mindset and had this theory that the confrontational closure that we tend to want to seek when we've been done wrong is overrated. And trying to get revenge or seek revenge or avenge our feelings or whatever, our honor or whatever, is overrated, right? And so like even Vivica, I feel like she's stooping to a level when she tries to now make Morris Chestnut the frustrated one and, in dealing with the breakup. So it's just like, I guess more on like, what are your thoughts about confronting the ex? And if we should really use like this step to replace that type of interaction.
Confrontation is a power play. And essentially, if you play with your power, you've already lost it. And, I mean...
That's it, right? I mean, because that was really powerful, right?
That was. Power doesn't move.
That was it, like in one sentence. Wow.
It is what it is. And it really, the healing is in changing the relationship, or the way you feel about the relationship, or rather changing the way you relate to what happened. The healing is not necessarily in confronting what happened. It's about tweaking, or having taking a new lens at what occurred. Right. I'm feeling very ineloquent right now, because I'm like, I'm not actually saying what I want to say. The point is, once the confrontation begins, you've already disempowered yourself. And as much as I wanted to seek out the guy who ghosted me, I couldn't even get him on the phone.
Right.
So how am I going to do that?
For just regular interaction.
And then we take ourselves right to the next level, right? If we want to have this confrontation so bad, I can't get you on the phone. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show up at your house. I'm going to show up at your job. And you're right. You've lost your power at that point, because you're making unhealthy decisions, right? Based off of the pain that you're experiencing from this breakup.
And power doesn't travel.
Right.
You sit on your throne and it comes to you, or people come to you, right? And so this idea that you're going to go and hunt for power is just absurd. Sit in your power. That's
Right.
it. Right? And so the idea, at the end of my book, I talk about how I had my quote unquote confrontation, which wasn't one at all.
Right.
Right? I was stepping off the train right there on Utica Avenue, and who do I bump into? But the guy who ghosted a ghost.
Right.
Right? And so it was one of those moments where I stepped off the platform, saw him, but didn't really recognize him, but I did. And I was just like, it's, like when you bump into like a D-list celebrity, you're like, I know you from somewhere, but I can't tell.
Can't put my finger on it.
Can't put my finger on it. And it was just like that. And so I said to myself, well, if they look at me with recognition, then I probably know him. Right. And so he did. And I was just like, oh, I know him. And then that's when it came back to me, and I was just like, oh yeah. And it was completely neutral. It was a neutral event. I saw him. He saw me. He said, hello. How you doing? By the way, he was shooketh. Right? And
yeah, because he probably thought you were going to give him an earful. Right?
What, boo-boo?
Right.
You did me a favor. You showed me who you were really quickly.
And created an opportunity for me.
Right.
Had you had not even had that experience, maybe Breakup Funeral with us. So thank you, in fact.
Thank you. Because now we have Lenina here sharing.
Right. Bestselling
Her
author,
exactly.
entrepreneur,
Yeah.
Breakup Funeral, healing all around.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So this is my medicine to offer the world. Right. I did my work and I wrote about it, and this is it. And it came by way of, honestly, really dramatic events.
Right.
But it was a blessing.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Turn the trash into treasure, my friends.
Yes,
Exactly.
that's right.
No,
And you
that's
can do
exactly
that.
what you did.
Yeah.
And so now I want to maybe we take a little detour for a second. Still focusing on the book, but what I really liked, and like Lindsay and I had chatted about it, you start each chapter with a quote. And so I was curious, like, how did you figure out that process? Like, did the quote come first and you write the chapter to fill the theme of the quote? Or did you write the chapter and then you said, oh, I know what quote will go with it? I'm just super curious about like how you did that.
So my editor was just like, listen, your deadline is tomorrow. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I have to like finish this book. And so I essentially, the quotes came as a theme of the chapter. They came to me via Instagram, via other books that I read, via
really
podcasts that I listened to.
Yeah.
And I like that there are quotes at the beginning because it's an intro to a perspective.
Right.
Right. And I get to check in with myself. How am I interpreting this quote? Because that's also going to help me be aware of how I'm going to even experience this piece of the chapter, this step of the ceremony. Right. So I love that you have those quotes there, introducing my mind to a new thought. So thanks for that too.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I couldn't have planned it better myself.
Bam!
Yeah. Look at how things work out. No, that was great.
You know what's really funny? Not to cut you off. As I was editing this book, there were some parts where I was just like, I don't know if I can include this. This feels really personal. I'm going to take this out. And the parts where I had the most, challenges around were the ones people turn around and said, that was my favorite part. It was really important for me. And all I can say was just, ooh.
Yeah.
Good thing I didn't take it out.
That's what vulnerability would do. We were just talking about vulnerability. And so when we are vulnerable ourselves, we open the door for others to be vulnerable, but then also accessing this empathy, right? That we need to connect with each other. So, we thank you for being vulnerable because it allows us to check in with ourselves, right? And be more self-aware, but to connect with others who need a part of this experience as well. Who want to experience it, rather.
Right.
Vulnerability is really key. It reminds me of one of my favorite Brene Brown quotes, the vulnerability expert herself.
Yes.
And she says that in order to walk in this world truly vulnerable, you have to have a strong back, soft front, and wild heart. And the way I interpret it is your backbone will protect your heart. And so you can run wild and be free and be vulnerable because that is your armor, your backbone.
Good. Yeah, I love it.
Oh, I love it too. So in another part of the process, you bring up you walk us through like the VIA character survey, right?
Yeah.
To come armed with your strength and to choose a thing that embodies your number one strength. So can you tell us a little bit about the character survey and like what it is and just expand on it?
Okay, so as part of my studies, I did a focus on positive psychology. And positive psychology, despite popular belief, which isn't positive thoughts, has nothing to do with that.
Right.
Although it might in some cases. And positive psychology is the study of character strengths. There are 26 character strengths, and Martin Seligman is the father of positive psychology. And in positive psychology, the idea is to focus on and strengthen the strengths that you have, versus in classic psychology, which is to address the weaknesses and work on those. The idea of positive psychology is that you strengthen your strengths so that when you are going through a tumultuous time, you have your strengths to fall back on because the muscle has already been, it's naturally your tendency and the muscle's already been flexed. So you're actually really good, right? Yeah. Good in place. And so the VIA character strength survey is an assessment that you can take to learn about your top character strengths. And so your top 5 character strengths like curiosity, love of learning, honesty, humor, your top 5 are the ones that you can access the easiest. And typically they don't change that much throughout life, barring something like really cataclysmic happens and, things move around. All right. And so with the VIA character strength survey and the way it's used in the Breakup Funeral is you get really clear about your top 5 character strengths and you begin to embody them. And part of the funeral is that you say, well, how am I going to use this character strength to pull me through, right? How am I going to embody this, this humor, right? This love of learning, this spirituality or joy, right? And so part of the, in my learning of positive psychology and the character strengths, one of the character strengths that stood out to me the most is hope. Right, were you going to bring that up? So hope is the only character strength that requires something negative to happen in order to ignite it, right? And so in my studies of African spirituality, and so actually someone called me out on this. Well, what do you mean by African spirituality? It can mean a lot of things. And I said, yeah, fine. West African spirituality and the study of my family's from Haiti. And in Haiti, there is a form of African spirituality that is practiced called voodoo, right? And so as I was learning about different spiritual practices, one of which is voodoo, right? And I learned that of the 4 elements in African spirituality, elements like air, water, fire, there's another, earth, right? Yeah. Of all the elements, fire is the only one that requires something else in order for it to burn. And so when I heard this from like my spiritual studies and my academic studies, is like both worlds collided. And I was just like, oh my God, this is so good. And I was just like, that's why the Breakup Funeral works. I love it. It's like the collision of both worlds. And it's so powerful. The visual of using hope and fire to like catalyze each other. Right. And so this image that one can spark the other and fuel each other. Yeah. Hope and fire. And so the Breakup Funeral process of the burning and releasing, sparking hope and it just brings up the image of the phoenix rising from the flames.
Exactly.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. No, super powerful. I have a question though about the character survey and something you said, like it usually your character traits don't change that much. Mm-hmm. So what's interesting is like, as I was reading this, like sometimes you forget like some of the stuff you do. And I'm like, this sounds so familiar. Mm-hmm. And I had taken Barbara Fredrickson's positive psychology course on Coursera back in 2015. And so I had taken this character strength survey. Mm-hmm. And so, I was
trying to find it.
So I go and I log in. And so I look at it and I'm like, oh, my character strength was, the number one was humility. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'm going to take this again, 5 years later, right? And now, like I took it, like a few days ago, and the number one character strength is now love.
Wow.
So even though
those are
love,
in alignment,
and love was in the top 5 before, but now it's number 1. And what I think about is, could it be a positive lifestyle change that altered it? I became a mother in the time between taking the 2 tests, and I was just like, wow. Like, and then they were like all of my top 5, because now in my top 5 there's teamwork. So I am parenting a human being with Dex. Like that's something we didn't do before. Right. And like now that is like literally at the forefront of our relationship. And I could see like the difference, my character strengths, how it changed because I became a mother. Yeah. And that was like really insightful.
That's an event. Yeah. That's one of those big life events that will change you.
Right. And so like cataclysmic in terms of like severity and not necessarily negative.
Right. That's shifting.
No, that's shifting. No, I thought okay, folks, if you want to learn about yourself, please like check out the VIA character survey. You could just Google that and it'll come right up, and you can see how much of each strength that you have or have easily access to.
Access
to. Perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Love it.
Oh, this is great. Now I just lost my train of thought. I was just all wrapped up in
all excited.
Yeah, I was really excited about it.
About that new awareness, right?
Yeah.
And seeing that shift.
Yeah, and seeing the shift. And knowing that you don't have to be a certain way forever. Like it's within you to kind of alter like your narrative and how you show up in the world and how you interact with yourself and how you interact with others.
And life experiences will challenge you to do that, right? And it's just all about where do you go from that experience, right? So it just makes me think of what can you share, just maybe one testimonial that you've heard from somebody who participated in the breakup ceremony, breakup funeral?
I got one, actually a really big one. Yeah. For me, it was 2 years ago at New Year's Eve, real random. I was at some off the beaten path nightclub on a Sunday, and in walks in this person, and all I hear is Lenina. And I'm just like, what is going on here? And it was one of the women that I did a breakup funeral for. She was like one of the first ones. And she comes charging to me and she's like, Lenina, oh my goodness. You know what? I think I really did release something at the breakup funeral. And I was like, oh, well, why do you say that? What's going on? Because I'm already looking at her like, what is going on? This is really random, lady. And she's like, yeah, because, a couple of, a month after the funeral, I met my boyfriend, and now we're about to go and, go travel the world together. Right. And the boyfriend was in tow. And so I was just like, like seeing the actual real-time results of what can happen. Right. And during the breakup funeral, she said that she had some childhood trauma that she didn't even realize that she was holding on to. And she was like, I let it go. And so I was just like, wow.
Awesome.
This stuff
really how did that make you feel? Yeah.
Well, I thought, true story. I was just like, shoot. I know, like here's this medicine I'm offering that's serving so many people, and I'm just like, I can't even figure out my own stuff.
That's real life, though.
That's sobering, right?
Yeah. I was just like, damn, it works. And now I've got to. There was still some steps I had missed.
Yeah.
That I had to walk into, and that's actually part of that's actually my second book.
Nice.
Right.
Nice.
So I'm good friends with a Christian mystic. Right.
Okay.
He's a healer, and he calls me. His name is Joel Adafon, and he calls me. He's like, "Hey, Lenina, Spirit just said that this your next book," and I was just like, "All right, cool. Can I finish this one first?"
Right.
and he's like, listen, your next book is going to be called The Resurrection. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'm like typing away. I'm like, okay, I'm on deadline. I'll talk to you later. And after I got off the phone, I was just like, oh, The Resurrection.
Sounds good.
Well, at the moment, I was just like, because I live my books. Mm-hmm. And so I was just like, I'm going to have to die.
Right. Something's going to have to die. Right.
And essentially, that's what happened. Over the next 9 months, over the next 9 months, it was everything that I had known to associated with myself all fell away.
Yep.
And I had died.
And it was a new birth, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I knew I would be okay, but it was really scary for a minute.
Right.
Yeah. And so I say this to say that the rebirth can feel uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's it. It can feel uncomfortable. I don't even have any words of comfort other than it's going to be uncomfortable.
Right. But when you're uncomfortable, that's how you know you're growing. You're creating an opportunity for that growth, right? If we stay in the same, then there's no growth.
Yeah. It's just I can't even offer any platitudes. Now I'm at the space where I'm just I can't even say, oh, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, there's no fluff. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's going to be uncomfortable. What I can offer is that you hold on to yourself. Mm-hmm. When you feel like the ground beneath you is falling away, hold on to yourself. And that's part of the Breakup Funeral. It's building resiliency. Mm-hmm. And learning about your own character strengths so that you can hold on to yourself when what you know and what you have changes. Yeah. And you're just like, well, who am I now?
Right.
You are what you are. Okay. You've always been who you were.
That.
Yeah. Been that. You've always been the power keeper. You've always been the goddess, the priestess, the queen. And now it's time for you to remember and hold on to yourself.
Yeah. And
because
walk in that.
everything around you will change. Yep. That's guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't even say, they're there. It's no more like cuddling. It's just like that tough love. Mm-hmm. It's love.
Yeah. Well, then I think we all need love, right?
Yeah.
It's love.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's your top character strength. So
you
already know.
You guys don't know. I literally had both sheets, and I was like, "Oh, this one moved to this." Mm-hmm. It was really a good experience.
Love is powerful.
It is. It really is. This has been really wonderful and fruitful. I think a lot of robust gems you have explained and expound upon. Tell our listeners how they can get a copy of this book and just dive in, and then also how they can keep up with what you've got going on.
Okay. Well, you can find the book on Amazon, really. Okay. It's a digital download on Amazon Kindle. And also, I'd like to offer my book for free for any of your listeners who's listening who's like, I can really use this.
Nice.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. If you're not going through something, go buy the book.
Right.
Okay, please.
Right.
But if you are, you can get it at ain'tthinkingaboutyobook.com.
Nice.
Yeah.
And do you have a social media platform where they can get connected with you, or a website you prefer?
Absolutely. I am on all social at Lenina Mortimer. LENINA MORTIMER.
Nice.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us. We've really appreciated it.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you for having me.
All right, great.
You're welcome.
And now it's tea time. Today, T stands for transform. Transform your trash into treasure.
E stands for energy. Using the energy of the fire to spark hope.
And the A is for act. Act out your closure through a breakup funeral. Thank you so much, Lenina. We had a wonderful time. Thank you, folks, for listening. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our podcast and share it with your friends. And if you want to keep in touch with what we're doing and what we've got going on, follow us on social media. That's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Necessi-Tea podcast. Bye-bye.